list, assigning them to a user, creating a task, etc. Generally, completion actions will work for marketing asset levels. When someone open an email, clicks an email, if someone is unsubscribed from an email, if they fill out the form, if they download a file, etc. These are all the scenarios where completion action is applied. All these assets will complete consisting of completion action. Generally, whenever we are using in a workflow, if they do some action, we will apply the completion action. Remember, the completion action is only applied for the prospects. They are not applied for the leads. If you see here with respect to a completion actions, it applies immediately. It applies immediately is nothing but whenever you're creating a, for example, if you're creating a form through a completion action, whenever fill out the form, we need to trigger an email. In that scenario, if you done it, if the once you fill out the form, automatically you will receive an email at that point of time. That is, it applies immediately. And when it comes to executes every time in the sense, for example, if the person has filled out the form multiple times, he's going to receive the triggered email multiple times. That is, in the sense, whenever the person has done some action, it executes that at that point of time. And the last one is it's not retroactive. Not retroactive means people who have matched the completion action in past, if they want to experience some changes what we have made in a completion action, that will be generally applied only for the new prospects. That's why it's not retroactive. But if the prospect is already done that activity, if you want to do that one more time after the change, then it is applied for the old prospects as well. Next is segmentation rule. The segmentation rule, automation rule, and the dynamic list. All three of them are criteria-based list, and they're retroactive as well. The criteria-based meaning is they have to set the rule. If someone has met that rule, the action is automatically applied through that automation tool. First, I will talk about the segmentation rule. The segmentation rule is a one-time use. One-time use in the sense, once you have created a criteria for that segmentation rule, it is going to check the entire database who are all satisfied that criteria. And you can manually add the prospects as well for the segmentation rule. When will you use the segmentation rule is in the sense, for example, if you're sending a list emails, whenever you're sending a list emails, it's a one-time email. That in that point of time where you're going to create a list by using a segmentation rules, and we're going to target for that email that list. Generally, as we mentioned over here, segmentation rule is a one-time use. If you want to refresh again, we need to manually re-execute. It's not automatically applied. And the last point is segmentation only action. Each and every automation rules is having an action except the dynamic list. But when it comes to the segmentation rule, there will be only 5 segmentation actions will be there. If I want to name them, we can add them to a list. If we can add them to a remove from the list, we can add them to a tag, remove from the tag, and we can add them to a campaign. These are all the only 5 segmentation action rules where you're going to use it in segmentation rule. When it comes to the automation rules looks almost similar to the segmentation rule. If I want to tell you clearly, all these 3 automation rules are criteria based and have similar rules to create. But the major difference is action only, where when you're creating a segmentation rule, you can find the segmentation actions. If you're using your automation rules, where you have an automation actions. Generally, the automation rules are running 24/7 at the background, and they will go to every prospects which is in your database to match that rule. Here, it's as mentioned, it runs automatically, and the prospect match once. I think by default, it will be match once. If you want, we can match multiple times as well. I will show it in the demo, how that will work. And the prospect cannot unmatch the rules. The prospect cannot unmatch the rules means in future, if you have edited the automation rule, change the rules once, since the prospect is already matched to that automation, he cannot come out of that rule. Once it is applied, he will be there in that automation rule. Next, when it comes to the dynamic list is the last type of automation tool. The only thing we are doing here is we are adding the people to the list and removing the people from the list automatically. Generally, we are use this dynamic list in an engagement studio or reporting purpose most of the time. You are not going to use that this dynamic list for manual send emails, and manual send emails in the sense ad hoc emails for one-time send emails, where you're going to use the segmentation list at that point of time. When we create a rule or a criteria to add and remove the prospect from the list, it is going to run 24/7. As mentioned over there, the dynamic list, it's going to add or remove the prospect from the list. Means once you created a dynamic list, if any of the prospects is going to match to that particular criteria, automatically he is add to that list. If moving forward, if the person is not going to match to that criteria, he is automatically removed from the list. And it is refreshed regularly. As I told you, it is going to run 24/7. This is the general automations tools and the overview of that automations tools. Now I'm going to demo one by one with respect to these automations tools. The first comes the completion actions. As you can see in the example, where the completion action is applied under marketing asset level. What they are doing here is initially they are sending an autoresponder email. Once they have sent an autoresponder email, they are notifying the users. Finally, they are going to add the prospects to the Salesforce campaign. From the actions, from the automation activities within the existing elements, where you can see, as I mentioned over earlier, since the completion action is applied for the marketing asset level, where you can find custom redirects, list emails, files. In the sense, when somebody clicks a custom redirect link, it's automatically applied a completion action for him. When somebody fill out the form, it's applied for a completion actions. If someone has done with respect to any page actions, he has applied for the completion actions. It executes every time when it is completed, and it is not retroactive, and it will not execute for anonymous visitor. As I mentioned earlier, it's going to apply only for the prospects, not for the leads. Now I will demo in the tool how to set up the completion action. I think you have seen the scenario. In this example, I'm going to do the same thing. Go to marketing, forms. First, you need to create one form. You need to select any of the folders. This folder and campaigns are mandatory. These are all the fields which is included in a form: first name, last name, company, and the emails. I have made it as mandatory for first name, last name, and the email. I will select one layout template to show the form. This is thank you content once somebody has filled out that form. And this is the place where you're going to add your completion actions. For example, if someone has filled this form, I want to add to a particular list, or if you want to remove from the list, where we have multiple criteria where you can add actions, where you can add. For example, simply I'm going to add, if somebody has filled out the form, you need to add to this particular list. Once that is done, this is the form I have used. Once you submit the form, obviously the subscriber will be added to the list which I have selected, and you are going to receive a triggered email. I think if you want to receive a triggered email, I think at least you need to wait for 1 or 2 minutes. I will show that afterwards. Once you fill out the form, automatically you can see that under the prospect section, that prospect in that particular list. For example, if you go and search my name, which was filled today, this one, under the list tab, where you can see that this is the list I have selected when fill out the form based on a completion actions. I have attached to this list. Yes, this is how completion action will works. Yes, these are all some actions which I showed in the tool. I think whenever the client requirements comes to you, I think you need to follow, you need to know all these actions, in which scenario where you're going to place these actions. Next, the segmentation rule. As a segmentation rule, I have explained earlier, it's a criteria based, and it's execute one-time rule based on a specific criteria. And it's manually re-executes. Manually re-executes in the sense, it's not going to run automatically. If you want to run it again with respect to that segmentation list, you need to manually re-execute that one. And it's going to retroactively evaluate all the prospects. And the segmentation action, where you can see over here, there is only 5 actions over here. You can add it to tag and remove from the tag. You can add them to a list, remove from the list. You can add them to a campaign. You can remove from, only add them to a campaign. Yes. The example for segmentation rule is, if you see the screenshot, you can see this match types over here. The match types is match all and match any. Match all means it needs to match all the rules which I have mentioned, and match any means if it is matches one rule, he will apply for that action. I want to demo it on tool. Go to marketing, segmentation, rules. If you want to add any new segmentation rule, yes, I'm going to select, since I told this is the match all, if you want to use match all, it needs to satisfy all the conditions which are mentioned with respect to rules. If it is match any, it needs to satisfy at least one rule. For example, I'm selecting as in the screenshot where the Pardot, yeah, let's consider as a Pardot webinar, prospect webinar. If he has attended the webinar, add to some list. We can grade him with respect to some grading as well. If you're using multiple rules, it needs to, since I have selected the match all, it needs to satisfy both the conditions. Once the prospect has satisfied both the conditions, he will be applied for these actions. As we have mentioned here, there are only 5 actions. I'm going to add to a particular list, or apply. You can apply a particular tag. You can add a Salesforce campaign. You have only 5 actions with respect to a segmentation tool. Once that is done, you can preview it. Preview it in the sense, you can preview how that you can see. Otherwise, you can testing as well. Testing in the sense, you can see how many. 1 second. In the preview matches, you can find how many is matched for that conditions what you have put. Is going to apply it for that actions. You can see once it is done, we can run this automation segmentation, and it is we can use it for anywhere else with respect to our scenarios. This is how the general segmentation rule will work. These are the general rule criteria where we are used in both automation rules and the segmentation rule, where we have multiple criteria rules. As I mentioned earlier, with respect to a client scenario basis, we need to target these rules. And the segmentation rule actions where we have only 5 to 6: add prospect to the list, add prospect to a Salesforce campaign, add to list, apply tags, remove prospect from list, remove the tags, where we have only 6 options with respect to that segmentation actions. Yes. When it comes to the automation rule, as automation rule is also a criteria based, and it's going to retroactively evaluate all the existing prospects. The difference between the automation rule and the segmentation rules: the segmentation rule is one-time rule. The automation evaluates, and it's going to run 24/7. If you have put any rule under the automation one, it's going to run 24/7. And the rule will be apply actions to match prospect once. And as I told you, you have an option like you can make it as multiple as well. I'm going to show that. The action won't be reversed even if the prospect unmatched the criteria. As I mentioned earlier, if the prospect has matched once, the prospect is matched that automation rule. If the rule is changed, if he is not going to match in future also, he will be considered as he will be matched that rules only. This is the example you can see in the layout. It's similar to almost a segmentation rule. You have an match all, match any, match conditions, the same actions. You can find it over here as well. But the condition, what I have written is different. Only apart from that, everything is almost same. If I want to do the demo it on tool with respect to an automation rule, first go to marketing, automation rules. I'm going to add the new automation rule. I think I have mentioned the repeat rule. Repeat rule in the sense where I have mentioned only one time the prospect is going to match this repeat rule. Here you have an option like by default you can make it as 1. Otherwise, if you don't want this, we can make it as repeat rule as multiple times based on the requirement. Same rules which are added for segmentation rule, where we can find all those rules over in the automation rules as well. But the only difference with respect to automation rule is actions. When it comes to segmentation rule, where we have seen only 6 actions, but when it comes to automation rule, we have around 23 to 25 actions. Apart from that, everything is same as a segmentation rule. I think I will skip this one. These are the general rule criteria which we have used in automation rules.
Sharath, we have a question in the chat. Can we have a multiple operator rule in rules like rule 1 and rule 2?
Yes, I think I have explained that as well. You can add multiple rules for automations as well. Multiple rules in the sense, as I mentioned, match all. If you're using match all, it's going to satisfy all the multiple rules. If not, if you're using match any, it needs to satisfy at least one rule. Next is dynamic list. Whenever you are creating a list, you need to select the dynamic list option to create a dynamic list. And there is no action for dynamic list, as I mentioned initially. Generally, we are going to use the dynamic list for reporting purpose and the engagement studio. And it is same as it is 100% a criteria based list, and you cannot adjust manually. Adjust manually in the sense you cannot add prospect to the list manually, and you cannot remove the prospect the list from the prospect, remove the prospect from the list. It cannot be a CRM visible. Cannot be a CRM visible means because the CRM visible is a manually controlled list. You cannot see the list in CRM. The membership refresh regularly. Once the prospect matching the criteria, he will be added to the list. Once the prospect no longer matching the criteria, he will be removed from the list. And you can add this dynamic list to the email preference center page as well. Only who are matched to that condition, those customers can see this dynamic list under the preference center page. Since the example is similar to the segmentation and rule and automation rule, I'm skipping this demo, but I will show how to create a dynamic list. If you want to create a dynamic list, you need to go to marketing, segmentation list. Whenever you're creating a list, a dynamic list, you have 4 types of list over here. I'm going to talk about only with respect to dynamic list. Whenever you're creating a dynamic list, you need to check this dynamic list. And you have same options. What are the options we need to put over here in the sense rule wise to match this dynamic list? We need to add these rules. And as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have an action where we are going to use this in engagement studio or reporting purpose. Yes. This chat will help you to choose which type of automation tool needs to be used based on the situation. Where we are creating a rule, what should it is based on? For example, first, when it comes to the what is the rule which is based on, we have an option like criteria and actions. If you're using only action, obviously it should be a completion action. If not, it is going to be create criteria based only. And then once the criteria is going to use, when we are going to check, is it one time or multiple times? When it comes to the one time, where we are going to use the segmentation rule. If not, we need to check what is the desired outcome of that automations. If you want to update it to the particular list on a 24/7, where you're going to use the dynamic list. If you want to use the action of that criteria, where you're going to use the automation rule. These are all some scenarios where we can identify which automation tool we need to select on the particular scenario. The first one, I will read. I think every scenarios will have a keyword to identify which automation tool where you are going to use. The first one, you want to create a new list to be used once based on the prospect location and title. I think you have a keyword over here. Create a new list to be used once. Since you are using the list once, the answer will be a segmentation rule. Segmentation rule is mainly used to create a one time of list. You want to create a list that continuously update to only include prospects who are not a current customers and have expressed interest in the express management product. I think you have an keyword here as well. If you find it clearly, where we have a create a list that continuously update to updates. If you want to create a list that needs to be updating continuously, where you're going to use the dynamic list, since it is going to run 24/7. The third one, you want to send an autoresponder email to prospects who submitted a form, request to download a customer's case study PDF. I think we have done this in the demo. We are going to use whenever some prospect is going to fill out the form, obviously is going to receive a triggered email where the option is completion action, where you're going to put the completion action to send a triggered email. The fourth one, you would like to assign prospect to a user group based on country and product interest. I think here I'm using the action. Since in our demo we haven't used much action. If you go and check, if you want to add the prospect to the user group, where we are going to use the automation rule, as I mentioned here, where we have an options like 23 actions to be performed under automation rule. The fifth one, you want to create a list for an engagement program that will be added and remove prospects. I think you got from here only. If you want to add and remove the prospects, where you're going to use the dynamic list. You want to create a Salesforce task when the prospects visit the company pricing page. I think we have done this initially as well. Whenever using a page action, where we have an option to use the completion action to create a Salesforce task and as anything. The option will be a completion action. You want to pull one-time report of how many A+ prospects. One-time report, one-time list that comes under segmentation rule. And the last one is you want to create a Salesforce task which is submitted successfully. A form has a grade which is greater than B+. Here, where we are using a automation rule, as I mentioned, there will be around 23 actions. I think you need to know all those 23 actions where we are going to use those actions. The next, the lead qualification. By the end of this module, you are going to learn about how we are going to scoring the prospects, how we are going to grading the prospects, how we can default manually add the scoring to the multiple prospects, and how we can default profile using with respect to a grading as well. First, what do you mean by lead qualification? You probably have thousands or hundreds of customers in your brand who are interacting with your organization. At that point of time, your sales team cannot reach each and every customer. So as a marketer, it's our job to help send them a best prospect. This process of finding a gold needle in the haystack of prospect, this is generally called a lead qualification, where we have a regular general scenarios where the client side where we are going to use these are the general scenarios. Let's take one example. Here we have Ethan and Sarah. Sarah has a score of 122 and Ethan has a score of 310. From this score, you will get to know how much Ethan is know about your company, product, and how interested he is with respect to your marketing content. From this example, we can easily get to know that Ethan has know more than Sarah. For this example, if you want to select a qualified lead by using this scoring techniques, I can easily select Ethan since the Ethan is having a more score than Sarah, where I'm going to select Ethan is a qualified prospect. But if you're going to check with the grading one, the grading is completely different from the scoring. The grading is mainly based on profiles, not with respect to your marketing content activities. In the profile, where we are going to add the criteria for qualifying the prospect, the criteria should be like a job title, for example, where we can grade on job title. Whenever you are grading on a particular field, the first thing we need to check that is we have that values for all records. Since we are qualifying based on that job title field, we need to check that initially. In this example, you can find Ethan is having D- grade, but Sarah is having B+. From this, we need to qualify Sarah, not Ethan. I think the grading will take more qualifying prospects with respect to a scoring one. What is scoring? Generally, a score numerically indicates how interested prospects are in your products or services. The scores are assigned based on implicit actions. For example, if someone clicks an email, if someone downloads a form, someone views a page, or if someone submits the form, where you're going to assign a score. I think initially when I'm talking about the scoring values, I think you can see all these options over there. Each and every clicks or downloads will have some particular scoring over there. With respect to the Pardot scoring, we have some other ways to update the scoring values as well, where we have manually we can change the scoring value to the particular prospects, where we can use the completion action to change the scoring, where you can use automation ruling, where manually we can import through a CSV file, and we can do that under the engagement studio as well. This is the baseline scoring rules, comes with the Pardot. I think you can see on the left side, by default, this will be the scoring rules, which is comes under product, but we can change with respect to our requirements if you want. For example, as I mentioned, if here the page view is 1 point. If I'm going to create a priority page with respect to a page action, if somebody clicks that page, I need to assign 10 points. At that time, I can edit these scoring rule based on our requirements. This is how we are going to add the score manually. If you want to manually add the score, okay, but better I will show one demo with respect to this. For example, I want to manually add some score to this particular prospect, where we have an option like under the prospect list. If you go to that prospect, we can manually assign some score for this prospect. This is the manual process. Likewise, I have said earlier where we have it different options, like where you can do that through completion action, during imports, automation tool, engagement studio, and the baseline scoring. And we have one more option, like as I mentioned, we can do it through CSV file as well, where you can see over here where we have an option like score as a field. Whenever you're importing that file, you need to mention how much score for each and every prospect. For example, here we have mentioned Joseph is having 50 score. Next comes the grading one. The grading indicates that how interested you should be in that prospect. The grading based on the explicit factors, generally it's going to align sales and the marketing on qualified list. Yes, we are going to send, if anyone is qualified with respect to our marketing content or grading, where you're going to send those customers to our sales reps. And based on scale, where we have an option from F to A plus, whenever the whenever the customer arrives to us, it's going to starting with a B, where you can see that begins with D, but it's not visible until the profile is adjusted, where you can see that one of the option over here, Wilbert Collier, is not having the grade. Since he is new to our market, where you're going to, that is not visible at initial point of time. These are the general guidelines for the grading prospect. You can go through all these things. Yes. The next is profiles. The profiles, which includes how to identify the criterias, how to weight the criterias, which are the criteria values where you're going to use. As I mentioned over here, these are the criterias where you're going to use based on profiles, the company size, location, industry, department, job title. The weight criteria is completely depending on the requirements, where you can adjust like 1/3 increment or 2/3 or a whole one. We can assign it to them as well. It depends on client to client. Yeah, I'm going to show how the default profile is going to update. Yeah, this is the default profile and the custom profile. Based on requirement, if you want, you can create. Yes, you can see here where we have a criteria like the company size is 1/3 letter, location will be 2/3, job title, department, CRM. Based on our requirements, where you're going to assign these over here. If I want a company size, I can do 1/2, 1/3, 2/3, or 1. Yes. Once we have done any changes, where we need to save that profile. Based on this profile, the grading will be works. Yeah, I think that's all with respect to lead management and lead qualifying. I think it's already run out of time.
Yes. Yeah, Sharat. So we have more 10 minutes, and
Yeah, sure.
we want to like get some question and answers.
Sure.
But so just to give you guys heads up, so we'll cover few question and answer. Those are in the chat, and then after that I'll show the code that you can use, that will be used for a next, like in a next session we'll cover sort of a quiz, and after that we will in that quiz we'll use that code, and then whoever like becomes a winner of that session will get that certification voucher, right? So just 9 more minutes for the code. So before that, let's begin with the question. So first question was from Garima. She was asking, can we have multiple operators in a rule, like rule 1 and rule 2? So probably she's asking about when we define criteria rules, right? So can I have and or not? The way generally we like combine rules in let's say in Salesforce administration, right? Like workflow rule, I can have and or like do that permutation combination. So do we have that sort of capability? That's what you want to know.
Yes, as I mentioned, with respect to, for example, to Garima's question, if you're using match all is nothing but it's going to works on and condition. And condition in the sense it's going to, if you're using multiple, if you're creating multiple rules, it needs to match all those rules to apply that particular action. If you're using match any, it is going to work on or condition. Or condition in the sense, if any one of the condition is going to satisfy, obviously the condition will be applied for that rule.
Okay. Next question is from Anish. What is the use case where we will be using automation rule because we cannot unmatch it once added? So can you give a real life example of automation rule?
Yes, Anish. I think that's a good question. Generally, whenever automation rules, as I mentioned, where you can find different set of actions. For example, if you're using, as I mentioned in a scenarios only, if you're using a Salesforce as a database, at that time, if you want to assign any of the tasks, where we don't have an option with respect to if you want to use it under segmentation rule or dynamic list, you need to use the automation rule only. We don't have any other option. This is just a simple scenario which I told. As I told you, if you go to check that rules and the actions, you can find out multiple scenarios where you only can create those scenarios from your.
Awesome. Next question is from Aishwarya, and she's asking, does OR operator works?
Yes,
I think you mentioned any, that's equivalent to OR operator, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, Pradeep Kumar.
Yeah, Pradeep is asking, is dynamic list is all about managing the subscribers and unsubscribers?
Yes, as I mentioned, whenever we are using a dynamic list, we can use that under the email sending as well. Email sending is, as you mentioned, it's correct, where you can manage through subscribers and unsubscribers as well. It's not only to manage unsubscribers and subscribers. That is the one use case where we can do that, to manage subscribers and unsubscribers, where you can add them to an exclusion list whenever you're sending an email.
Okay. Chaitra wants to ask, is there any option of creating recurring rule? So recurring means probably like the way that we set up a recurring meeting, like something that gets evaluated sort of.
No. We don't have any option like that. As I mentioned, in a segmentation rule, if you want to create a segmentation rule, it's going to work only on one time. If that is the case, where you can use that segmentation rule. If you want to change if you have done any edits with respect to a segmentation rule or automation rule, you need to re-execute when we are doing with the segmentation rule. I think we don't have any option like recurring manually. It's going to apply.
I see. Next question is, what is scenarios segmentation list will be used?
Yes.
What scenarios?
As I mentioned, for example, whenever we are sending an ad hoc emails, at that time, where you're going to create a segmentation list, because ad hoc emails, we are going to send it, schedule it only one time. We are not going to send the same email multiple times. at that point of time where you're going to use the segmentation list.
Awesome. I think we cover all the questions. Are there any other question you guys can, probably unmute and ask if you want? If there are no further questions, I'll just show you the code that you can take a screenshot or make a note of it, and then we'll use that in next session.
Yes.
And um, we will decide the um, winner for the um, winner for our voucher code. So this is the let me know if you guys are able to view my screen. Sharif, are you able to
Yes,
view that?
yes, Satul, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So please take a note of this this code. We will so the next step for in the next session, what we'll do is, like, in the next session we'll cover whatever items are remaining. Okay, as per the plan that we already published, and once that session is done, we'll cover a Q&A. Okay. In Q&A, or we'll conduct a quiz kind of a thing, where you guys will be able to participate online and then give answers, and whoever wins that quiz will get that certification voucher. The first winner will get certification voucher. And if you are there was a question, can we get the recording? So yeah, you have recorded this section, and then we will upload it. Probably it will take some time for us to process that video and then upload it. But then yes, we will post it in some time during this month, like after our second session is over. So we will I'll upload a PPT as well on the page, on our community page, and then from there you will be able to download the PPT as well. So recording, PPT, that information you should be able to get it from the community page. So I hope that everyone got that code. Anyone who have not received, or who was not able to record that code for certification voucher. So I want I want to give a fair opportunity to everybody. To make sure that everybody who have put in their efforts and time should get that opportunity. So that's why I'm asking again, is there anyone who have not recorded that code? I think how we can use the code. Okay, so Vinay asking how we can use the code. It's not a okay. So how we can use the code? So what we'll do is, like, after in our session 2, right? That is next Saturday. What we'll do is, like, we will conduct a question and answer session. Okay, where you will get a quiz, online quiz, and if you know like Kahoot, if you have played Kahoot in any of the community event, so it's a like Kaun Banega Crorepati kind of a game, and you just need to be quick and then enter the or give the appropriate answers. And once you are done with that, you can it will tell you like who are the winners, who are leading, and these kind of things. And I have just shared the link on the chat, so if you want to try it out, if you have never used it, I would highly recommend you go ahead and try that game out. You can create your own quiz, and then you can create your own game, and like play with your friend or one of the family member, and just get acquainted with it. and then once you are once we get the winner, we will sort of I will share that code with that particular person. That person will need to reach out to me via email or like whatever channel works for you, and then I'll give you I'll give the winner a voucher code. Okay, and it's not a discount code, it's a voucher code, so you can use it for any of your certification exams. And are there any other question? Can I get the code again just to confirm? Okay, let me share my screen again. So this is the voucher code. Shweta, this is again for you, especially because you requested on a chat. So I hope you are able to make a note of it. So let's go back to chat and see if there are any other questions. Okay. Vineet is asking, it's like game pin. I'm not sure. I have not used game pin, but you can use Kahoot, and then just make sure that you are sort of aware about how to use it, and you get a fair chance to win the certification voucher. It's 200. What I know is it's a 200. It works definitely for 200 US dollar exams, but then I heard that for some folks they have tried for 400 and it worked for that as well. I'm not 100% sure that it will sort of work for 500 or 400 USD kind of exam like domain certifications and other stuff, but 200 for 200 US dollar exam it definitely works. And so don't miss out that opportunity to win that certification voucher for yourself. Okay, so thank you, Sharath, for this awesome session. Thank you guys for joining us on Saturday morning. Hope you this session was informative for you, and we'll see you again next Saturday again.
Okay, thank you, Atul.
Okay, guys. So there is one more question that for the next session, can we get the registration link? I think it's there on the site, but the URL I can quickly double check and tell you. I think the URL should be same. So if you have the URL for this session, so it should the same Google Meet session should work next week as well. So let me double check that quickly for you. 17th October. Okay, yeah, that session is, I don't see, is on the, okay, so what I'll do is I'll post a link on the on our community page, and then you can use it from there. You will get a link from the community page. Okay, I'll definitely make sure that I post that link by today end of day. So just make sure you check the community page. Are there any other questions? Can we take a quiz now? That's very nice. But yeah, we can take a quiz, but you won't get a certification voucher. Will that work, Chet? That was just a joke. We have not prepared for the quiz today, so we'll do that. We'll definitely do that next time, next Saturday, and that's how we'll decide the winner of our session. Okay, guys. I think we have 5 minutes over our scheduled time, so thank you very much for your patience. We'll see you guys again next Saturday. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir.